Keep watching the full video to see what the Russian military did after capturing a Ukrainian girl. As the conflict between Russia and Ukraine escalated into a full-blown war, the people of Ukraine were forced to flee their homes or risk being caught in the crossfire. Among those caught in the chaos was a young woman named Maria. Maria lived in a small village on the outskirts of Donetsk, one of the areas hardest hit by the fighting. Her family had been struggling to survive for months, as the war had destroyed their crops and left them with little to eat. Despite the danger, they had decided to stay put and try to rebuild their lives. One day, while out gathering firewood, Maria heard the sound of gunfire in the distance. She knew that this meant that the Russian military had arrived in the area. She quickly gathered her things and headed back to her home, hoping to avoid being seen. But as she reached her front door, a group of Russian soldiers suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They surrounded her, their weapons trained on her. Maria tried to explain that she was just a civilian, that she had nothing to do with the war, but the soldiers didn't listen. They accused her of being a spy for the Ukrainian army and dragged her away to their nearby base. For days, Maria was subjected to brutal interrogation and torture. The Russian military continued to have sex with Maria every 10 minutes. As long as Maria was there, she would feed him in exchange for sex. At the same time, 7 people used to rape him. So much sex makes Maria weak. The soldiers accused her of giving information to the enemy, of hiding weapons in her home, of being a traitor to her country. They beat her mercilessly, refusing to believe her protests of innocence. Despite the pain and fear, Maria refused to give in. She knew that she had nothing to do with the war, that she was just a victim caught in the crossfire. She clung to the hope that someday, she would be able to return to her village and rebuild her life. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the soldiers released her. They gave her a warning to stay away from the war zone and left her to make her own way home. As Maria stumbled through the war-torn landscape, her body bruised and battered, she knew that her life would never be the same again. But she also knew that she was a survivor, that she had the strength to rebuild and move forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Maria made her way back to her village, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Russian soldiers were still watching her. She was afraid that they might come after her again, and she knew that she had to be careful. When she finally arrived home, she found that her family had fled the area. They had left a note for her, explaining that they had decided to join the thousands of other Ukrainians who were seeking refuge in the capital city of Kiev. Maria was heartbroken. She felt alone and vulnerable, with no one to turn to for help. But she was determined to survive, no matter what. Over the next few months, Maria worked hard to rebuild her home and her life. She planted new crops, tended to her animals, and tried to make the best of the difficult situation. One day, while out in the fields, Maria heard a strange noise coming from the sky. She looked up and saw a drone hovering overhead. She knew that the Russian military had been using drones to spy on the Ukrainian people, and she felt a sense of fear and dread. But as she watched the drone, she noticed that it was flying in a strange pattern. It seemed to be trying to signal her, to get her attention. Maria wasn't sure what to do. She didn't want to risk being caught by the Russian military again, but something in her heart told her to follow the drone, to see where it led. So she set out on a dangerous journey across the war-torn landscape, following the drone as it flew overhead. She dodged Russian patrols, hid in abandoned buildings, and fought off hunger and exhaustion. Finally, after days of travel, she arrived at a secret Ukrainian military base. The soldiers there were surprised to see her, but they welcomed her with open arms. It turned out that the drone had been sent by a group of Ukrainian rebels who were fighting against the Russian military. They had been searching for someone brave enough to help them, someone who could gather information and bring it back to their base. Maria knew that this was her chance to make a difference, to fight for her country and for the people she loved. She joined the rebels, and over the next few months, She became one of their most valuable assets. She used her knowledge of the land and her courage to gather information about the Russian military's movements. She helped to sabotage their supply lines and disrupt their communications. She even participated in raids and skirmishes against the enemy, proving herself to be a true warrior. In the end, Maria's bravery and determination helped to turn the tide of the war. The Ukrainian people were able to push back against the Russian military, reclaim their land, and start to rebuild their lives. Maria knew that the road ahead would still be long and difficult, but she also knew that she had the strength and the courage to face any challenge, no matter how daunting. She was proud to be Ukrainian, proud to be a survivor, and proud to have made a difference in the fight for freedom and justice. Subscribe now for more video.